Alright people, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification. That way you'll know when I upload the next video and you'll be supporting my channel. Follow me on Twitter. Every time I upload a new video, I'll be tweeting. Ladies and gentlemen, reaction. This is Cataclysm, Dark Days Ahead review. Don't drink toilet water by the channel ssethtzeentach. A thrilling game about suffering, survival, and generally a lot of pain. As in many amazing, incredibly ambitious game, CDDA, okay, it's completely free and runs on any PC, toaster, TI-84 or potato clock. Yeah, okay. This is another, I guess, game from 2013, which is kind of like a, I guess, small indie type of game. But one thing I found out by reacting to this channel, that small games are really fucking awesome, right? Dwarf Fortress, Space Station 13, the details on that is just ridiculous, so let's watch it. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. By subscribing, you'll be supporting my channel, and that way I'll know which type of videos to react to more, I guess. If you want me to react to any specific video, comment down. Eventually, I'll react to it, even if I don't reply to your comment. Yeah, check out the cards, check out the cards, and let's watch it.
Hey people, Seth here. Today, I'll be reviewing a game that's not often talked about. Cataclysm, Dark Days Ahead. Have you ever been so thirsty you drink water straight from a toilet, only to catch ass parasites and die? Have you ever been so upset from getting caught in a rain that nothing could make you feel better except a soothing shot of heroin? Have you ever decided to surgically implant yourself with bionics that allow instantaneous physical teleportation, only to teleport inside a concrete wall and be crushed to death? All of these are distinct possibilities in Cataclysm, Dark Days Ahead. Cataclysm, Dark Days Ahead is a turn-based sandbox roguelike, set in modern times following a sudden apocalypse. As a grueling survival game with permadeath, Cataclysm pulls no punches in creating a tense and sometimes bleak setting. Yet despite all that, it's incredibly fucking fun. Story. The best part about the story is that no one knows exactly what happened, but I'll give a simple gist of it. While future governments are busy bickering and threatening each other, the cataclysm hits. We get invaded by different extra-dimensional organisms vying for control of Earth. Some of these are multiple species enthralled under a superior controller intelligence. Some are part of a sentient fungal hive mind that spreads its spores throughout the planet, and some are part of the most widespread and prolific group, known only as the Blob. The game takes place several days after the cataclysm, by which point most human life has been extinguished in major cities. The sentient blob organism infests any living creature and rapidly divides inside them until life functions fail, at which point it will revive them as a host for the blob, using the body's biomass for fuel and muscles for locomotion. Any hosts of the blob.
Alright. The concept, basically, they took it from the, one of the famous, I guess, 80s, 90s series, right? The Blob was a horror movie. It was good in a way that it was different and simplistic, right? Every time somebody makes some kind of a horror film or anything, they, they basically have, not that much of a different imagination. All of these things have teeth, a face, right? Like they are somehow vertebrate or something like that. So teeth, face, fingers, arms too, or something like arms like that, legs, right? It can look like an animal, it can look like a bit different or some mutated, but some version of that, like, it's like a human. Blob was different because it was just fucking blob, right? And what the awesome thing about Blob is, once Blob killed somebody, I think it was in theater or something, it turned red because it consumed the blood or something like that. So, even though people hated that movie, the difference of how somebody uses their imagination on that, it was just fucking awesome. So they use that blob type creature, some organism that is like blob type of thing, which consumes and make people into zombie. Obviously, the most famous one, fungus type of thing, spores, fungus. Some kind of organism that is like a hive mind of thing, So I like how they just took, one of the most basic horror things from the, I guess, 80s, 90s type of thing. They just took that and put it in the game to, I guess, feel more relatable, right? Because sometimes simplicity like that can be fun.
Blob are extremely aggressive, as their primary reproductive strategy relies on spreading the organism through open wounds.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Simplicity, like, it's relatable because you watch all these movies and things like that, right? If you make something too complex, you'd spend half of your game just understanding that.
infection is treatable, which is why blob hosts prefer to utilize mauling, deep bites, cuts, and claws to inoculate as much of the organism as possible, preferably killing the victim in a process whose whole body will be hijacked within several hours and rise again as a fresh host. There is only one goal in Cataclysm: survive. In a rare case you manage to live long enough to see winter, only then you can start developing ambitions. Go from just surviving to controlling and dominating your environment. Find other survivors and have them join you as companions. Follow radio signals and trails that lead to some of the last bastions of humanity and help re-establish civilization. Cataclysm is designed as a survival sandbox and doesn't force you to do more than the bare necessities. The rest is up to you. Gameplay. Cataclysm's a roguelike. A complicated one at that. You'll need to utilize your entire keyboard to make use of all the functions given to you. There's no point explaining the controls, just play it until memorizing them is second nature to you. Download my copy and play random characters until you figure it all out. And don't forget to tell us how you died. Most of your characters won't live long, but if it's any consolation, my first character was a literal neckbeard. I walked barely 5 meters out of the evac shelter and got attacked by a wild moose, which I somehow managed to kill by thrashing its skull with my Nintendo brick. It broke both of my legs, so I couldn't walk, so I played Game Boy instead to avoid depression and distract from the pain. I was getting ravenously hungry, so I dragged my crippled body to a sharp rock and used it to rip out raw chunks of moose flesh and intestines, playing Game Boy in between bouts of regurgitating the disgusting flesh and entrails while dying of thirst. Then a pack of coyotes ate me alive. It was at this point I realized, this is the game for me, but stick with it.
Oh, this is ridiculous. So it's kind of like a, spooky panic type of game, because survival is all you can do. And anything can happen. Suddenly coyotes. Look at the numbers of coyotes. How the fuck are you supposed to defend against that?
And you'll find yourself dying less from stupid circumstances and more from your own stupid decisions. As briefly mentioned before, you play different characters in Cataclysm. While you can generate different worlds, these can accommodate multiple characters, starting in different, unique scenarios, randomly spread throughout a world. The class and background of a character you pick will either improve or hinder your odds of survival, while their traits and quirks make for some hilarious situations. You could be flat-footed and stealthy, or brawny and resistant to disease, or you could be a psychopath that feels no remorse when mowing down undead children with your Volkswagen, or you could be a schizophrenic suffering auditory
bullshit. Zombie child, what the fuck? Sometimes I think Seth is just being sarcastic and saying something which is not in the game, but clearly that's not the case. Everything he says is part of the fucking game. How? Bethesda can't even let you kill any, basically anything that is underage, right? In their games, Fallout, Elder Scrolls, and games like this basically pass things like, they'll let them sell the, basic game to everybody like this when they have elements like this. I get it, it's zombie, but still.
Dead children with your Volkswagen, or you could be a schizophrenic suffering auditory and visual hallucinations. You can even start the game as a genetic dead end, having an allergy to almost every type of grain, fruit, dairy, or processed food. I hope you enjoy bulimia, because that's a condition in this game. So is anorexia. In many ways, Cataclysm is the quintessential teen girl simulator. Many of the classes in the game range from sensible to complete meme material. You could pick anything from a police officer to a crackhead, hooker, BDSM gimp, or even a religious preacher. On that note, very few games out there actually let you play as an imam. Imams naturally start with increased diplomacy. I recently did an imam playthrough of Cataclysm. Being a people person, I was more a talker than a doer. Within days, I had shown several survivors the true path to Jannah.
Yeah, Seth needs to be careful here, I think. Because, YouTube being YouTube.
Equipping them with
Then again, this game is from what? Holy shit, 3 years ago? More than 3 years ago? Yeah, I think Seth is fine.
and gunning down every heathen on our warpath to glory. This worked well until we ran out of ammunition. Unfazed, my men continued to bash the enemy. As admirable as their courage was, we were assaulted by a zombie Hulk, who left my men in pieces and me splattered on the sidewalk. Where you start on the map and what challenges you'll face are largely determined by the scenario. You could start as a standard survivor in an evac shelter some miles away from the nearest city, or a prisoner trying to break out of living hell as your inmates turn on you, or a group of miners cracking through the earth to relive the events of John Carpenter's Thing. The game is so jam-packed full of content that you'll never be bored. Cataclysm makes you realize that in a post-apocalyptic situation where the power grid, infrastructure, and social services have collapsed, the most valuable thing on the planet becomes books. Brainlets who can't read will be consumed by their lack of adaptation, while intellectual 105 IQ geniuses like myself will bloom. Books found across the world, especially in libraries and schools, can teach you technical skills that a layperson wouldn't possess, from being able to make simple tools in the wilderness, to working and repairing cars, to complex metallurgy, and even making your own biodiesel. This goes all the way up to attempting bootleg surgery on yourself to install bionic implants to transcend.
You know what just occurred to me? That Elder Scrolls, basically Bethesda Game Studios, just makes the game, which is like a third-person advanced graphic AAA games. But games are basically inspired by games like this, right? Space Station 30, Dwarf Fortress, things like this, which has way too much detail in it. Because everybody's just surprised by how much detail, lore, and everything you can do in the Elder Scrolls games, right? And that's what makes those games the top of the, I guess, food chain, right? And Elder Scrolls games come there, and that's it. That's it. Too many people buy it, too many people play it, because it's a, I guess, AAA, this kind of a game. You can read books, there are tons of books, so much ridiculous lore that 99% of people who play that game will never see it, right? So many things, so many side quests that you can't even know, right? You have to go to a fucking cliff, climb certain place that most people won't even climb, and there you find a note that basically leads to a small story that most people will not even touch it.
And your own humanity. With only a small drawback, botched surgeries will leave you spilling out your own organs and permanently disfiguring you on your deathbed. Cataclysm's crafting system is amazing. Most recipes in the game follow a set hierarchy of ingredients, building up from raw materials and simple devices, and breaking back down to those components when disassembled in their complex form. Let me give an example. If I know some simple electronics, I can assemble a flashlight with an amplifier circuit, scrap metal, a light strip, and some copper wire. Once I've made this flashlight, I can pull it apart and break it back down to those base components. You can spend hours pouring.
Seth, what were you doing with all those amplifiers and copper wires and that thing? What you trying to make there?
Over the absolute volumes of different crafting recipes available to you. And many recipes in the game are flexible. Don't have the optimal parts for something? And that's fine. You can often substitute them for something else. Let's say I need medical supplies to disinfect wounds, but I lack rubbing alcohol. Then, any sufficiently strong spirits like vodka, brandy, or rum could be used instead. And no alcohol at all? Then you can still sterilize the gauze with concentrated honey. The system is fucking amazing, and there's no game that comes close to the amount of code reserved for crafting. At the beginning of the game, it's unlikely you'll find a working car. Most left behind would be trashed or broken by now. But whether through sheer luck or some mechanical know-how, you can commandeer your own personal vehicle. Cataclysm is the best turn-based driving game I've ever played in my life. It's absolutely insane how intense driving can be when you're desperately plundering buildings for resources while avoiding hordes of zombies that want to pull your skin off. But Seth, a car is huge. Why not just mow the zombies down?
Oh god, that's a sentence, right? You're plundering buildings just to survive, trying to avoid zombies. That's how Fallout should be, right? Look man, I'm not saying Fallout 4 wasn't great. It was fucking incredible, everything about it. Just because it's a Fallout game, it was incredible. Not to mention all the settlement building, it was still good. But because of that, and I don't know, it didn't feel right. After playing New Vegas and playing Fallout 4 doesn't feel right. The same thing with Fallout 3. After playing Fallout 3, if you play Fallout 4, it doesn't feel right. Fallout 4, so many RPG elements were taken out. There was no sense of much survival there because you can create settlement and fucking trading system and way too much resources now. That's not survival. That's not post-apocalyptic, right? You can create fucking lots of water pumps and water would flow like, you know, it's not even, I guess, today's world, right? Before the war, people probably has more water problem than post-apocalyptic in, I guess, you know, in Minute Maid or whatever that is, in Minute Maid settlement, because so much, you know, water filled pumps are there. Yeah. So I don't know, Fallout 4 didn't feel right. If it was anything like a spin-off to Fallout, it would be fine, but it says Fallout 4, which is kind of scaring me. Like, how's Fallout 5 going to be?
Sure, you can afford to run down one or two or several, but the damage to individual car parts accumulates, and sooner or later, your engine will start coking, your wheels will start coming loose, and your windshield will be smashed to a pulp, leaving you either dead in the middle of an ocean of undead closing in on you, or splattered on the pavement when your seatbelt fails and sends you flying at a concrete wall. That is incredible. Until you experience the world of high-end car crafting. If you somehow got hold of welding equipment, you can pump up your hippie van to be a mobile death machine. Replace the crappy eco-friendly plating with Kevlar you scrapped off an APC. Remove a gay inline engine and replace it with a V12 sports engine. Add serrated spikes to the hood of your car and turn your current playthrough into a high-velocity Mad Max rampage. Survival in Cataclysm is difficult, especially at the beginning, but through careful use of your own abilities and the resources at your disposal, you can make the game bend to your will. Or you'll get tired of careful living and start drinking public sewage water to malform into a hideous monstrosity. You won't miss those legs anyway, especially now that you've got 8 of them and can dangle from roofs constricting survivors and enemies as a gigantic mutated octopus. Or maybe you'll come to realize your struggle is pointless and futile and decide to join the enemy. As a final word of caution, never trust NPCs. The most dangerous creature in the Cataclysm is still other humans, and don't be surprised when someone plays innocent only to get close enough to aim a crossbow at your face and rob you blind. If I had to describe this game in one sentence, it would be single-player DayZ. Except fun. You can have someone call you a shithead dickhead, then immediately after, ask you to avenge their friend who got eaten in the woods by a jabberwock. The bipolarity of NPCs is hilarious and dangerous, and really adds to the experience. Also, the aforementioned jabberwock, half of the time that quest completes itself, so you don't have to do anything, as either the jabberwock gets eaten by something else, or steps on a landmine. I hope I've convinced you to try the best post-apocalyptic cotton farming and crack smoking simulator on the market. Also, it's free, so what have you got to lose? As always, more content to come, so stay tuned. A warm...
Yeah, the last bit was fucking incredible about the cars. Details on the car is just awesome, right? You just mow down everybody. That kind of fucks up the game for me. But now car can be damaged. Now that's better. If car couldn't be damaged and you can just mow down everybody, that's an element that kind of becomes an issue for me in a game like this. If it's supposed to be massive RPG type of game, right? Sandbox RPG type of game. But now the car gets broken up and you could be in a place where, you know, you're surrounded by a horde and your car is broken down. It's a real panic situation. I love that last point, right? The game sounds incredible just for that small thing. Seriously, man, I'm just realizing this, that, you know, games like this exist. Modern games like after 2010, games like this exist. And not just that, they are way too much detailed, right? Way too much detailed. The RPG elements in these games are ridiculous. All the things that developers think of to put in it, like, okay, what if certain people play like this? We have to put that feature in. How much time did this spend just thinking? How much features should we put in the game? The games like this are incredible. Dwarf Fortress, you know, Space Station 13, now this Cataclysm is fucking incredible. Alright, people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe. Check out the reaction, there's a link in the description. Check out the cards, check out the ink cards, and yeah, follow me on Twitter. Comment down if you want to react to a specific video from this channel or any other channel, I guess. I'm liking this gaming review type channels, right? Internet Historian used to be one of them, right? Now he basically does more real world situation. It's good, right? But there are other games too, like, you know, Seth is in his own field, I guess. No other channel is like this as far as I can remember, right? Yeah, because Soviet Womble and yeah, there's Russian Badger, right? But he doesn't do reviews like this. It's different. It's just friends having fun. Same thing with Soviet Womble. Seth is different. If you know any other channel which are incredible like this, comment down. And yeah, I'll see you next time.